Okay.
Welcome to Two Crazy Scoots Podcast with your hosts, Ayo and Antino. This week we have returning guest Tyson Torres talk to us about nature, movies, and everything in between. As we can survive the storm that's happening outside right now. So hang tight, one of us might cut out. Who knows? We'll wait and see. It's like Russian roulette.
We'll see what happens. As I was telling Antino and Tyson earlier, the trees in my yard are facing sideways at this point. So,
well, Tyson, thanks again for coming back on the show, man.
No, thank you guys for having me. You know, pesky monsoons just, making human life miserable while, giving nature a drink. That's always good.
We went from it being super hot to now just raining out of nowhere. I didn't think it was supposed to rain today, so. But besides the fact that it is raining today, well, obviously, I think you were on when was the 4th episode, Aaron?
I think so. I should have looked it up. 4th or 5th, maybe.
It was pre-COVID, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. We were all running around, hugging everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so fun. Yay!
And Tyson, to this day, I still say this, that your episode was my favorite and is my favorite. It is.
I'll be a tough act to follow for myself today, but we'll see what we can do.
I have a feeling this is going to be good. This is going to
be yeah. Okay, so the whole point of this episode is going to be how Tyson worked at a movie theater. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about some things. I guess like we mentioned before all this, we could go and do whatever we wanted. But now everyone's kind of stuck inside. But we're all trying to make the best of it, obviously. So what are some things that you've been doing that kind of help you stay sane right now?
Well, one of the things that I decided that was important because, you have your creature comforts in your house and you can binge watch Netflix and different things, but actually, nature is good for you. Unfortunately, when people go out hiking and biking and, triking, I don't know, they need to breathe. And so I don't necessarily feel comfortable going outside where there's tons of people, like in a stadium or something, but I decided to go for like a drive, like a scenic drive. And sometimes that means, like an actual nature park or preserve or someplace where I don't have to get out of my car, which most people would think in a pre-COVID time, well, what's the point? I mean, if you're going to go out there, hike, bike, walk, do something. But for me, it's not even all about the exercise in this situation. It's about staying sane, going out, seeing something other than the 4 walls of your house and the screen in front of your face, and actually communing a little bit with creation. So that's what I did. I went up to, like, one of the drives I went to was Mount Lemmon. Kind of there's different scenic points and stuff, and then Saguaro National Park is actually pretty close to my house, so I just drove down there. There's a loop that you can drive. I think it's 8 miles, actually. It was surprisingly long.
Is there a fee you have to pay to get in?
The day that I went, there was no fee, but I admit that I am a national park newbie, and so there's a sign up that said no fee was required when I went, but I don't go often enough to know whether that's like a regular thing.
Yeah.
So, and I hear that actually the park closes at different times. And so, probably there's some website I would need to check before making the trip down there again. But yeah, it was really fun. There's waterfalls, there's, flora, fauna, nature, I had the sunroof in my car open, get a little bit of sunshine, get those vitamins absorbed by the skin, Yeah. It's better than taking them in a gel cap,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm going to give a PSA about that, though, because I was driving, because I've been working nights at another place right now, and I was driving home at like 4:30 in the morning with the windows down because it was nice, and someone on the side of the road threw some liquid at my car with my windows down. So I would just suggest keeping your windows up until you get far away from society.
Do you know, this was not during COVID, but I had a similar experience where there was a lady who apparently was in a hurry, and I'm just driving my car, but she got really mad at me. And the next thing I knew, she like swerved in front of me and started like hucking eggs at my car. Like she must have just been to the store and was like, I have these eggs here I'm going to feed my kids with, but I don't love them as much as I hate that guy. So I'm going to start picking these eggs up, and I'm going to huck them at that guy's car to ruin his day. Yeah,
man.
So, and I was on my way to a work appointment, so I was a little bit limited as to, what my response could be. So, I just let her drive off into the sunset with her horrible 1989 minivan. And, I went to my work appointment. But yeah, that was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, same with me. I was just like, you know what? I don't even care. I'm just going to keep driving at this point because I don't know who's got what or why. So.
Do we know what the liquid was?
I don't. And I don't want to know. All I know is it looked like it came out of a big gulp or something because the person in front of me kind of swerved. So I kept driving, but then I saw like a liquid hit the windshield, but it was on the passenger side. So it didn't hit me, but you never know.
So someone threw it out the window while they were driving.
No, it was people standing because I could see them. They were like fighting or something or other. It was homeless people.
Gotcha. They were fighting amongst themselves, and you just happened to be driving by when some liquid got thrown, basically.
Yep.
It's kind of like that Red Sox fan at Fenway, where there were these people fighting at the stadium, and one guy got so mad at the other that he takes this huge overpriced slice of pizza and hucks it at the guy, and it misses him, and it hits the other guy behind him. And he's like, what?
Yeah, I would never throw pizza that I bought at any stadium.
Yeah, I don't think I'd buy any food if I got it at a stadium. I wouldn't waste that. That's like $20 a slice. You just savor it.
Yeah.
Like a little squirrel, you're like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna savor this $20 piece of pizza, but you just guard it, right? You're not gonna huck it at somebody. It's like, man, you must really hate that guy. Right.
to throw $20 at him. And the pizza don't even get it.
I guess this wasn't something we were going to talk about. What's the most expensive item you've thrown at somebody then, Aaron?
I don't throw anything that's worth more than $5 at anyone.
Okay, that's your price. I just want to know.
This was not me, right? But I was working many years ago in the IT field. And one of our clients was like a financial person. And the woman who was like the boss, she was letting one of her employees know that she did not appreciate his particular methodology in getting done what needed to get done. And so she decided that she was going to demonstrate his lack of ambition and veritas by showing him what she felt he had just done with the money, right? So she whips out this $100 bill, and she holds it in front of his face with her face 6 inches away. And then she proceeds to take a lighter and light it on fire. And she basically makes eye contact with him through the raging flames. Oh, this is what you just did to me. And basically stared contest through the flames of this bill. And I'm watching from several feet away. I'm like, I am so glad that is not me.
Wow.
Some things are just unforgettable.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah, I've never burned money before.
Mm-hmm.
I tried burning a penny, but that was just because I was bored. So,
did it work?
No, I just got black, and I was expecting to melt it down. Because they say pennies are worth more to make than it costs more to make a penny than it is that they're worth.
I've heard
Not that I was thinking about that when I was 13, but
I've heard what's interesting is that the face on the penny is Lincoln. And whenever legislation comes up in the U.S. Congress to, get rid of the penny, guess which representatives and legislators block it? The people from Illinois, because that's where Lincoln's from.
Ah.
That's a true story. Look it up.
I will. Although I have to say, I get a lot of info people telling me that all my information's wrong, so I will look it up. But I trust you, Tyson. I think you are a verified source.
I don't know. I mean,
Tyson is a walking encyclopedia.
You got a blue check mark on our podcast here.
Okay. Well, Abraham Lincoln told me that himself. So,
Oh, well, there you go. I met him one time when I was walking through Tombstone, I think. But,
dude, he signed his stovepipe hat and gave me a replica. It was amazing. Dude, it was election worn.
So, Tyson, we talked about the nature drives, which I am a fan of, with your windows up, obviously. And last time we talked to you was about, did we talk? No, we talked about board games with Travis, but we didn't get to really talk to you about that much of it with you.
Right.
But you also do enjoy board games.
I do. And yeah, because of COVID, right? Like, what do you? Right. Mm-hmm. So, see, I think the last time we talked about, being able to see the whites of your opponent's eyes. Right?
Yes. So yeah.
In line with that, there is something magical about board games that go beyond just wearing a headset and playing a video game, right? And so COVID has changed things, and you can't give your opponents a little a celebratory hug after you destroy them anymore, but you can actually still play board games online. So there is a client, as everyone knows, called Steam. And Steam has a game on it called Tabletop Simulator. And what's crazy about this is that these guys are all, crazy like I am, and they have programmed actual physical board games to have a digital manifestation inside this Tabletop Simulator. So Tabletop Simulator has different kinds of literal digital tables that they put in different settings, the desert, the woods, whatever. And you can change the camera angle to see, you could have a sky's eye view or super, close to the tabletop and have a perspective. But you can move the game pieces, you can flip cards, you can deal cards, all the things that you can do in real life, this simulator actually lets you do with games. We played an 8-player board game that is very complex, and it was actually astounding how much play this Tabletop Simulator lets you have. So, yeah, if you have a favorite board game and want to get your friends together, just put them on Steam and go to work. It was awesome.
So the real question is, though, you can do everything you can in real life, but can you flip the board?
Yes.
Oh, you can?
Yes. Oh, man. Okay, that is the best thing ever, because when we're done with the game, that's the moment we're all waiting for, where you just flip the board and all the pieces and segments just go flying into space. It is fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I usually don't wait till the end of the game, though. I just go right in the middle when I'm losing.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
True story.
Yeah. So when was the last time you were invited, Antonio?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just a spectator now. They don't let me join in, so I just sit there and pretend I'm flipping board game tables here.
Oh, man.
We have some good games of Monopoly.
Yeah, but I haven't played any online.
Oh, no.
The only games, I think we talk about this every week, but Jackbox.
Right, yeah.
There's different. I didn't know there was different versions of it, though. So there was one where you could have epic rap battles with your friends.
Oh, yeah.
And a robot reads what you type. It's very interesting.
Well, you have an option. You can either you can perform the verse yourself or let the robot do it. And you actually have some really good ones, Antino.
There's another one where you make up a product and you're supposed to pitch it. So there's a problem and someone else makes up the problem. So let's say the problem is bees keep coming into my house. So you would think you would just use raid, right? But somebody, their invention is the bee, I don't know, interdimensional warp detonator or something.
Super Bee-O-Matic 76.
Yeah.
Let them right up for you. Great bee.
So you're got bees coming in your house? You can send them to another dimension. And it's funny because you have to pitch it, and the people we're playing with is kind of comical. But
love it.
I was trying to find some of your rap verses, but
no, they're not appropriate for the podcast.
Oh, they are very appropriate. because you said some very kind things about me. I just want. I just have to shut up about it.
You know, a lot of my best friends are rappers.
Exactly.
I always tell my friend I like to think of music like candy. You throw away the wrappers, but that joke hasn't really fit in these days.
My favorite is Vanilla Iced Tea. He's my favorite.
So now, Tyson, the moment of truth, the whole pinnacle of your existence. No.
You know, Antonio, that they say that the farther back in life you have to go to find your golden age, the more of a pathetic loser you are.
So I personally do remember you working at a theater, because whether you remember it or not, you did get me and my dad in to go see Superman Returns.
Oh.
That movie was terrible. But at the time I was like, oh, it's a Superman movie. This is awesome. But like Superman has a son and then he like throws a piano and you're like, what?
Yep. I remember that movie. Brandon Routh rhymes with mouth. Yep.
I never saw
man.
Superman Returns. I remember everyone said it was horrible, but I don't remember the movie.
It was before I even knew anything about like superhero mythology or whatever. I just kind of just watched it because it was an action movie.
That was a strange movie because they meant it as a sequel to Superman 2, but not a sequel to Superman 3 and 4, which were sort of retconned, and that's a whole different discussion for another day, but I guess they didn't want Richard Pryor to come back and reprise his role. You know?
I don't think
Mark Pillow as Nuclear Man, you know? Have golden fingernails, I will scratch you to death. Ah!
You know, as a kid, what's funny is that was 4, right?
Yeah, this Nuclear Man was 4 with Mark Pillow.
You know what's funny? As a kid, I actually liked that movie. I know it was panned, like everyone hated it, but when it
is that the one where Superman goes evil or something? He like punches a dude in a bar.
No, that's 3. That's where they have the fake kryptonite that, you know, is missing some alien element, so they just make it up to something like tar or some kind of cigarette, you know, ingredient.
All I remember was like I was watching TV one time with my parents and my dad was like flipping channels, and that was like halfway through, and I was like, "Is this like a Superman movie?" Because he's like in a bar, like getting drunk or something, and just all mad at everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
goes, that's how he gets sick. He's supposed to die, but instead of dying, he just gets sick and like sort of mean. Yeah, I watched that in English and in German. That was an interesting. Wow. Hearing the German dubbed version of Superman 3, right? That was interesting. The little kid's like, "Kann ich doch hören?" and which means he has super hearing. He can hear me. He has super hearing. Oh man. But yeah, movies are fun. You know, they're a reflection of reality, and you know, I just, you know, to me, working at the theater was the way to become a part of the magic.
Superman Returns came out in 2006, by the way. So we're talking
wow.
When he got you in.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was I'm not good at math, but I think it's 14 years ago.
Yeah. Antonio was what, 3, 4?
I was like 13, I think.
Okay, well, I was close.
That was like probably when I just started. My parents were like, "Okay, you can watch action movies now." So I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch Godzilla." And I was like, "This movie's terrible."
Did you watch the old one? The old?
No. I watched the one with like the Matthew Broderick.
Oh, the one from 2000.
He's like electrifying worms at the beginning.
I think, something like that.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one where he was like a giant lizard.
What?
Hank Azaria, right? And he had like raptor-like babies at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that's the one you saw.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick. Yeah,
that was horrible. You watched? Yeah.
Well, Taco Bell convinced me that it was a good movie because that commercial I would like quote all the time. Mm-mm. When the Taco Bell dog's out in the middle of the city, he's like, "Here, lizard, lizard," and then the lizard comes out and he's like, "Uh-oh, I think I need a bigger box."
You got a good memory. Now that you're saying it, I remember those commercials, but
yeah, I was an impressionable child. Like, just mix Taco Bell with anything and I'll remember it forever.
Wow. Yeah,
my favorite is when the Taco Bell dog says, "Open up, it's the police."
Yeah. Oh my God. Such horrible commercials. But anyway, the movies. So,
All right, we're getting off topic.
but so Tyson, you were at the movies at that time, and tell us a little bit about your experiences there. And
Okay, well,
you just taught me something before we started recording. About seeing multiple movies. We can discuss that.
Yes,
Yeah, so,
definitely. You
because
could
one
ask
of
me
our past callers says that he found the perfect way. We're not going to expose him, but you can guess if you've listened to all the episodes who it is.
Well, people do that all the time. They buy a ticket for a morning film, they go and see that, and then they don't come back out unless they go to their car to get their jacket or whatever. They just flash the same torn ticket stub, and the ticket taker's a 16-year-old pimply-faced kid. He's like, well, yeah, go ahead, whatever,
Yeah.
No, please take a look at that. And if it's not a busy day, nobody cares. And then you just get back in and watch the next movie.
Yep.
Is, and larceny. No, I'm just kidding. but the theater doesn't care too much, and I'll tell you why. Here's a little known secret about the movie business.
Uh-oh.
The reason that they don't care too much and they have like a pimply-faced kid taking the tickets is because the primary source of income for the movie house is the snack and the food.
Oh, man.
And so here's how it works. The first week of release, the studio makes 90 to 99% of all the receipts. The second week, it might go down to 80 to 89 to 90%. And so forth. The longer that a movie stays out, the more its staying power, like a major blockbuster, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Titanic. Those the movie houses love because they stay popular with first-run fans over and over and over for weeks and weeks and weeks. Because after several weeks, 6-8 weeks, 100% of the receipts goes to the movie house, right? So because it ceases to become a first-run movie then. And then they make double money. They make the money off the ticket and the snacks. But early on, which is when most people go, very little of that money actually goes to the house. And so they're relying on you to buy snacks. And so guess what? If you're watching a bunch of movies and you paid once, that's somebody else's money. They don't care about that. I mean, they do because they get audited, but, they don't care as much about that.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's good to know.
Also, be careful because now it's a different story. Not that it was ever ethically okay, but all these movie theaters are switching to a reserved seating. And now all of a sudden, that's one of the reasons why is okay, the studios got wise. They're like, why don't you switch to reserved seating? So I'm in 2F, then, for my show, and then I come back to that same exact seat for the one. There's already a dude sitting there with a barrel full of popcorn. Sorry. So.
That's why you wait for the movie to start, and then you go in and find an empty seat.
Well, we're not encouraging anyone.
No, but I can tell you some stuff. I mean, what another thing that people don't always realize too is that many theaters do not openly forbid you to bring in food.
That's what I was gonna ask, because everyone's like, "Oh," and we hide burgers in my wife's purse and sodas.
Yeah.
Pies.
Everybody does that. And of course people do it because it's like we talked about earlier, stadium prices, movie theater prices, they're ridiculous and the food is somewhat inferior in many cases.
Somewhat.
So they hide the food, but what people don't realize is that that's not always an official policy. It is for some. But even if there is a sign and it's an official policy, of course the guy's going to tell you, hey, you got a big gulp in your hand, can you please toss that before you come in? But oftentimes, they're not going to have a guy coming into the theater, ruining the presentation with a flashlight and checking people's bags and mouths. Open up your jaw there, sir. I think you have a piece of Big Mac. I think I see Mayor McCheese there behind your nose. They're not going to do that.
Did they ever used to?
I think when my experience was with Century Theaters, which was bought out by Cinemark, and the policy there was that it was an open food and drink policy. They just did not publicize that. So I will tell you a little story because I decided to just see how far that went, and I worked there, right? So, because I was the voice of the movie phone for Century Theaters in Tucson, and I worked Elcon and Park Place. And the day that I was at Park Place, I decided, you know what? I only have time to basically come in and see one movie in Jet. it was a hot summer day. And if you know Park Place, the only shady parking is outside of Dillard's, right? There's a big like park garage over there.
Yeah.
And so I decided I didn't want to park there. I parked in the loading dock, right? I backed in next to little dumpsters and stuff where it's a nice shady cave, right? I turned my hazard lights on like I was loading. And then I went in the back way, and with me, I had a large pizza. All right. So because I'm me, they know me. So I went in the back way and I ducked straight into the elevators. And instead of stopping going through the whole thing, I actually went all the way to the top floor where only 2 of the theaters actually had entrances. So I bypassed everything so no one could see me. And I'm like basically, like waitering this pizza and my upturned palm, going into the movies. Now, that also tells you something about my dietary habits. Anyway, I was a much bigger boy then, but I watched Monsters, Inc., illegally parked with a large pizza, clapped at the end credits, and left.
See, I don't feel so bad anymore. That's me.
Mine was the old, granted, I had a black car, so, shade was very important to me back then. But
I think that was the title of the episode is Monsters, Inc. illegally parked with a giant pizza.
Yes. Perfect.
That is a great story. Because when did Monsters Inc. come out then? That was a long time too.
Oh man, dude, like 01 or 02. See, so here's what happened is that now I was, talking about this a little before the show too. I was in line for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
99.
Right? The 1999, it was the 12:01 midnight show sold out like 2 people in front of me. I ended up in the 12:10 show at Century Park 16, which is the one that was way out by the railroad tracks and the freeway. They actually lost their THX certification because of the proximity of the railroad tracks. I don't know if you guys realize this, but THX was Lucasfilm like super sound thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like DTS and THX, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So in order to keep that certification, there was a Lucasfilm tech that actually came out with like super headphones and like an oscilloscope. And he would detect the errant like decibel level of sounds outside the theater with this oscilloscope. And when the trains came by, no matter how thick those walls were, sorry, you no longer qualify. So they literally, he waited until he watched them like chip off the THX certification behind the box office.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how serious Lucasfilm was about quality control.
Oh, man.
But anyways, I'm in line for Phantom Menace, and it's so huge. The line it's wrapped around the entire theater, which was very large. And so you had people like coming. They saw the line, and God bless America, that entrepreneurial spirit. These guys like showed up with coolers that they had all this like ice with sodas, and they were selling the sodas to the people that were in the line.
Nice.
I'm like, dude, I wish I had thought of that. I wish I had brought one for myself. At least. But then I realized, what am I doing here? This is crazy. How do I beat the system? And I realized, if you can't beat them, join them. So I actually got word. This is now probably fast forward a year, and it's getting close to when Lord of the Rings was going to release, amongst other things. And I was like, okay, I heard that they were going to open up a new theater, and that was the Park Place. Elcom had only been open for a few years. And so I went and interviewed, and I got the job. And what's cool is, once I got started, they made me a manager because I was older than like 19 at the time. Automatically, you're just in a suit, And then they said, so we'll find someone to do the movie recording. And I was like, how do you choose that person? Like, well, whoever's best at it. I'm like, that's me. They're like, oh yeah? And I'm like, yeah. So they let me do it. And it was cool because they actually let me program the little thing. So I got to do that. And that's how I kind of, got the gig. And then I got it for the other theaters too.
What's the movie recording?
So it's where you say, hello, and thank you for calling the Century Park Place.
Oh, hey, your voice.
It's one. For Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, press 2. You know, it was that whole thing.
Oh,
And
wow.
back in those days, you know, you could actually, like, I designed the order that they came in. So if I thought a movie was awesome, like Star Wars, I'd put Star Wars at the very front of the first menu. For Star Wars, press 1. And then for the next menu, press 5. And then, like, go to the next menu. And then, like, oh, you know, for Lord of the Rings, press 1. And then, like, you know, for the next menu, press 5 after all the movies. And finally, at the very end, I'd be like, for Friday the 13th, press 9. So I could almost editorialize the movies I thought were terrible.
Yeah, the less enthusiastic were further down the list.
Exactly.
That's
And then they
awesome.
came out with an ad order that kind of like messed me over a little bit, but that was later in my career.
That is funny.
Well, that's cool. So then,
Yeah, you know, the cool part about that job too was it was not only for me, but as a manager, I got some cool things where, like, I think you mentioned, Antonio, that I could call people in. So it wasn't just my physical presence. I could literally be, you know, out of town, and I would call people in. They could come in, and then they'd let us bring like our own like giant cups from home and just, like, you know, get all this unlimited soda. That's another thing about movie theaters you may not realize. Okay, the popcorn that costs $4 or $5, $8 if it's large, $10, it costs about 35 cents in popcorn seed and oil and butter. Okay, the actual like Kentucky Fried Chicken looking barrel that you put the popcorn in, that costs more than the popcorn and stuff inside of it does. Okay, so, and then the drinks, you know, $5 like 32-ounce drink or whatever, 7 cents. Cup's about 10 cents. The soda's about 7 cents. So you want to talk about markup? That's the markup.
It's basically syrup and carbonated water that they're
right. Exactly.
Not that I would like expect you to, because I always ask questions that are a little too much, but not that you would know the inventory, but do you know how much they would be making on that stuff?
Well, like I said, I mean, because I was actually one of the inventory managers, now that you asked, and I do know. So basically, you know, what if you had $100,000 weekend, which we often did, you probably, you know, see a profit margin of something. Now, this is just on. This is not counting like the machinery, the electricity, you know, payroll. Okay.
Yeah.
You start factoring those things in, the profit margin goes down. But if you're just talking about the cost of the food, you're probably talking about you know, an 80 to 90% profit margin. And on some things, it was better than others, you know. In fact, the profit margin at Century was less because they actually cared. They bought like the premium butter and like the Orville Redenbacher, you know, seed that was better than, you know, other chains had. That was when the Sciapi brothers still owned that chain before they sold out to Cinemark. Century was the bomb back then. I saw Ocean's 11 3 weeks before red carpet.
Oh, wow.
And the reason is because it was a special engagement, and it was what's called a dry run. So if you sign off responsibility and you're not going to hold up your, you know, cell phone or like your recorder to record the movie, you can be the one to, you know, sort of check the print for mistakes or problems. And if you do that, then you get to see it early.
So my friend's younger brother, he got us in to go see a comedy movie that I probably won't really talk about, but it was funnier then than it is now. Anyways, we saw that movie before it came out, and he was part of like this club or something where he had like a card. Am I not remembering this correctly? Or because it was at Elcon that they would do this, and I don't even know how he got into it. But he, like, once you went to go see one movie before it came out, they'd give you tickets for a different one for free. But you kind of had to like keep in mind.
So the only thing like that I know of what were like radio promotions, where they would do like ongoing radio promotions and invite people to go to like, you know, to see it like either several days or sometimes even a week early. But that, you know, those things are not available to the general public or to employees. The dry runs sometimes were even earlier. They were often after the final showing of whatever movie was in there. It was unscheduled. And then only certain members of management would be allowed to go and see it. But that was actually a huge, huge perk. Because I could, you know, not only do you have your free popcorn and drinks, I mean, you know, candy we did not have free, by the way, because the margin on that is far, far less. But popcorn and soda, you know, you just you could literally bring a hefty bag from home if you really wanted to, you know? So, but yeah, that was super fun. That was super
That's
fun.
cool. So then, obviously, now it's more digital. At what
True.
point were you there for like the transition between that? Because I remember when you used to watch movies on film, and even there you'd see some tears in it or something at times, or burn marks.
Absolutely. It is digital now, and you know the equipment is far more expensive. You know, they've got serious sound systems now. They had pretty good ones even then, but it was still celluloid back then, and you'd build up the print. So the reels were only 20 minutes a piece. That's how much of the celluloid would fit into like the little metal case that it came in.
Oh, wow.
And I remember one time where there was a very special sort of presentation of one of the Star Wars movies, and there was a Lucasfilm rep that came, and he had the celluloid cases, and he literally had a handcuff like it was James Bond. And he had to watch the reels get built into the print to put on the platter, which was this big, 6 foot, in diameter looking, metal disc that the reels got put onto to build the print that would be, pushed through the xenon projector so you could see it on the screen. And after that particular special showing was over, that guy would wait in the box upstairs and watch it get broken down again, and then watch it get put back in the metal cases, and then he left and back to the airport.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't, the stuff that you think happens, and I would never have believed it if I hadn't seen it. I'm like, yep, that's legit right there.
Sign me up for that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I'd probably get beaten up pretty quickly, so.
I don't know for certain, but I would imagine that guy was armed, because potentially the reason that happened is because they hire security, because that's potentially the loss of millions of dollars if that print were to get released before release day.
Mhm.
The studios take that stuff very, very seriously. They don't want pirated copies of, episode 1 coming out beforehand. So they take it pretty seriously.
And so then were you there for the transition into digital where they stopped using the film?
So basically at the end, what I was doing, because I went on sabbatical to move to Texas for a little bit. And when I got back, it was early 2006, and I continued for another year, and they hadn't quite made the transition yet. And so, but what I did was I no longer worked for money. I basically only worked for 2 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
Doing the voice recording. And then that was my only job there. But instead of paying me money for that, they just gave me manager's privileges at all the theaters.
Oh, cool.
So at the end, I don't know exactly, because at that point, I didn't have a key to the doors anymore, right? I couldn't take my tour folks upstairs to see the platters and the machines and the projectors. But I could, I still had some access, just not total access, where, like a Park Place, there's 2 stories. We used to go up on the roof and run around and look down at the people in the little courtyards and stuff. We had keys to the emergency exits. It was fun, but yeah, things are different now.
Yeah. Well, I think before with the film versions, they wouldn't really get leaked unless somebody had the physical copy, correct?
Yeah, or if during a dry run, and this did happen occasionally, not in my theater, but in other theaters, if GMs didn't pay careful attention to who all was coming, and somebody brought a friend of a friend, if they held up a cell phone and videoed the whole thing and leaked it to the internet, no one knew how that happened. Mm-hmm. So, it was unfortunate. It was after my time, but I know that the studios clamped down, and they only allowed exactly one person in the theater, and that person was designated. Usually it was the general manager of the whole theater. So he couldn't even allow his family to come at that point.
Yeah, the reason I'm talking about that is that I think Wolverine, the first Wolverine standalone movie that came out, I remember that got leaked too, but they didn't have any of the special effects in it. So you could watch the movie before it came out, but they would throw what looked like supposed to be guns in the air, and they were just these gray little scale things, and then he would run, and there was no special effects, but the movie got leaked before it was supposed to come out.
So that was probably a studio leak and not a theater leak.
Okay.
Because the studio leak, those guys, I don't know if you guys realize this, but when they make movies like that, the special effects stuff is done until right before release, like days before in some cases. You know, I know, like, sometimes you can tell if you watch trailers really carefully, like with Avengers Infinity War, for example. There's a scene in the trailer where Hulk is like running with all the other Avengers toward whatever is going on, you know, that huge battle with Thanos and his people. When you actually watch the movie, Hulk's not running. He's not doing anything. He's actually in the Veronica armor. You know?
Oh yeah, he's in the.
So you're like, well, wait a minute. Where's that scene? What happened? It's because they were working on the effects until right before release, and that change happened between the creation of the trailer and the actual release of the movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's crazy. You never know what you're gonna get.
Wow. Hey, and that reminds me, this is not exactly, it doesn't have anything to do with special effects necessarily, but I remember the very first Avengers movie, that scene at the very end where they're like eating shawarma in that restaurant. They said that they filmed that like a week or so before the release of the movie. A week or two, or maybe 2, but it was right before the movie came out and it was just an end credit scene, but they filmed it. And someone, I forgot who it was, one of the characters had their face covered up because
I think it was Thor.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But they came back and shot that scene like right at the very end after the movie was already been finished.
Yep. That's there's little tidbits like that make life worthwhile. Like Chris Hemsworth's like couldn't stop laughing or whatever, so he's like covering his mouth.
Yeah, he's covered his mouth up. Yeah.
And there's like that woman in the background just like sweeping the floor the whole time, you know?
Yeah. Like that was normal. What just happened was normal. The alien invasion.
Exactly.
That happens all the time. Let me just go ahead.
And then another question I have is that now you can see movies Thursday afternoon, whereas I remember at a certain point you could only see them at midnight.
Right. So what has happened is the different studios have different rules about that. Disney is notorious for not wanting it. I guess it's related to, you know, release dates in different countries. In fact, strangely, even though the U.S. is thought of as like, you know, ground zero for all things, right, entertainment, other countries often have their release dates prior to the United States now. And so what you have is studios tightly controlling sort of the domino effect of different markets getting their releases. And oftentimes, you know, let's face it, there are a lot more people on the Eastern Seaboard than there are in the West. And so, yeah, you know, what has happened is there's been a creep from midnight. Oh, now it's 10 o'clock. Oh, now it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, when I run my private showings, I get it at 7 o'clock and not before. Now with COVID and other things happening, who knows if the studios will release it even further. If the movie is finished, they might change their release date again. Also, what can change it is holidays. If it's a holiday, it doesn't matter whether it's a Thursday or a Friday or whatever. If it's July 4th weekend, they want that weekend, so-called, to start with the holiday and then run all the way through from Tuesday to Sunday. So that they'll break all the weekend records, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, because I saw Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire at midnight, and I like cried. One, because I hadn't really stayed up that late before. And like I went to school the next day and I was just like, that movie was terrible. Like, why did I stay up to watch this stupid movie?
Spider-Man 3 is a great example of the studio trying to give the fans what they want when the fans really shouldn't have asked for what they wanted.
They're like, no, I want to see Spider-Man playing in the jazz band somewhere in Manhattan, right? Just to diss his girlfriend.
We're going to have Venom and we're going to have Sandman. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. All the fans after were like, well, we wanted Venom, but this is stupid.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I didn't. You know, funny, I was never crazy. I felt like everyone was crazy about those Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, but I didn't really care for it. I didn't really care for him as Spider-Man.
Well, I was also very young when it came out, so I didn't really have anything to, put it up against. It was once the third one had come out that so many years had passed, and I had been waiting. Like I would be like, man, this is gonna come out. What was it, like probably 2008 or something? I don't know.
Maybe
something like that.
Yeah. Well,
I will tell you, see, like the whole superhero genre for real kind of started with X-Men in 2000 and was solidified by SpiderMan. Those were the two really big blockbusters that sort of gave the green light to everybody. Hey, we can make money on this.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you're right. I think those were still the kind of like the stepping stones to make truly great films, which took sometimes several attempts to get there.
It did. Now you did have Batman too.
It's true.
As far as the superheroes are concerned, yeah. But
Batman's not really a superhero per se.
Well, what is he then?
He's just a hero. He's a normal guy.
Okay.
But Batman was in '89, and the DC universe, that movie was kind of it wasn't meant to be taken as seriously. A lot of it was tongue in cheek.
Of course, yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger saying "Everybody chill."
Yeah.
And the hockey team from hell, like coming out of the woodwork and like ice skating through the museum with the diamond and stuff.
No, okay, those no. I'm talking about specifically Tim Burton's Batman.
Right.
The other ones were garbage. Let me think for a second. Okay, you know what? A lot of people didn't like Batman Returns. I actually liked it. It was very dark, but I like the way Tim Burton did both the first two. Batman Forever, I actually like that one because of Jim Carrey. To me, Jim Carrey stole the show on that movie. A lot of people panned it, but I thought it was actually pretty good. But after that, so let's see, who was that? That was Christian Bale?
So you had
no, not Christian
I'm
Bale.
really bad at the whole Batman
That
thing.
was Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer, I think.
And then you had George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell as Batman and Robin.
Right, that was trash. That's the one with Mr. Freeze. That was horrible.
And that's the one that had like bat nipples on the suits.
Yes, yeah, terrible. That one was bad. But the one with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face and Riddler, that one I actually liked. And like I said, to me, Jim Carrey stole the show. Like, it was worth it just for him alone.
I don't know, man. If I ever go back and watch these movies, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, even if a year passes, your like brain changes and you're like, no, I hate this. Which is why I don't go back and watch the Spider-Man films. I'm like, do I really want to see Spider-Man break up with his girlfriend and then get back together and then break up again? Like, no, that's kind of like the plot of all three films.
Pretty much.
I'll tell you, there is a moment in the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire that is one of the best moments in movie history for me. It's when he is talking to Mary Jane, and then he leaves and it's raining and blah blah. But then these thugs kind of like see her and are like, yeah. And when they accost her, sexual assault is nothing to be sneezed at, right? That's not funny, but in the movie it was portrayed in such a ridiculous fashion where one of the thugs like runs up to her and then he oinks like a pig in her face. He's like. And I'm like, wait, what? Why did he do that? That's such the not scariest thing in the world to do when you're trying to intimidate somebody. I'm sorry. It was a dark scene. It was horrible, but I thought it was hilarious. I'm going to wink at you. Yeah.
They were definitely bizarre. One of them, it shows when Spider-Man's holding Mary Jane and they're flying through the air and they're going one direction and her hair is going the opposite way that they're actually like swinging. There's just like a lot of like really funny screw ups in the film.
And I heard Tobey Maguire is no peach to work with too. He's an interesting cat in real life. So I did talk to a bodyguard at San Diego Comic-Con once and I asked him who was the most difficult person he ever had to deal with. And he told me this story about Ben Affleck. And Ben Affleck, he said, was at Comic-Con and he was, on personnel detail. And they entered into this very special section with like velvet curtains and stuff. And there were signs everywhere that said no smoking. Well, Ben Affleck lights up a cigarette. And so this guy's job, and he's a built dude. Like this guy could break Ben Affleck in half. He could draw and quarter me with one hand. Okay. And Ben Affleck lights a cigarette up and he's like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Affleck, I'm sorry, but there's no smoking here. And we really need you to put that out. He's like, oh, you want me to put it out? So he takes the cigarette and puts it out in the expensive velvet curtains. And they smoke. And then he blows the smoke into this guy's face, which, by the way, is like a foot above his face. because of how big and built this dude was. I mean, I was like, wow. I mean, not just like the mean-spiritedness, but the chutzpah to do that to that guy. I'm like, okay, well, you're an interesting cat, aren't you? I don't know whether that was true, but that's just what he told me.
Wow. So did you ever have to deal with anybody like that in your theaters, like moviegoers who were just like wanted to smoke or just be weird? There's this one guy vaping next to me while I was watching a movie one time, and
oh man, I had a girl with like a portable video game device on full volume that I had to ask to leave because, and I wasn't always an usher, but when I was, I drank Dos Equis. No, I actually, had to ask to leave, which was such a strange thing. We really tried not to have to do that. But, if a person just stubbornly refuses to be respectful, I'm like, come on, you got to play a video game? Why did you pay for a ticket? You could have played this video game in the lobby or at your house for that matter,
Yeah.
And especially to have it full volume, too, on top of that.
Oh, yeah. She was just trolling, You never know what you're going to get when you're working for the theater, brother.
Yeah. I would imagine.
I have so many questions, but,
Save them for after the show.
I have so many answers.
Oh, man.
Actually,
yeah.
there was a report once that I got from a guy who experienced some truly like frightening, weird, eerie stuff after a horror movie, and he was telling me about it. I'm like, well, yep. Thank you for letting me know that. That's something we can also discuss after.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you just never know what you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about cleaning up the theaters, how thoroughly are they cleaned? Like the
depends on who's doing it.
We're talking about like
early enough
COVID and stuff. Huh?
It depends on who's doing it. So I tried really hard to do a good job. You have a crew, but I will tell you, no joke. Even people who care about quality like I do, if it's a super busy opening weekend with multiple kids movies at the same time, maybe there's a huge comic book blockbuster and like a Pixar animated movie and then like a family animal movie all at the same time, where every single theater isn't just dirty, it is destroyed, right? Like there's like puddles of like goop like in the aisles. Popcorn is like dropping from the ceiling with like soda stalactites where soda's been thrown and like hurled into the air. There's like spots on the screen from where people have hucked drinks at the screen, Like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get to that in 15 minutes. I'm just not, right? Now it becomes a race where I literally got on the radio. I'm like, hey, all points bulletin, Mayday, Mayday, where you had like the GM and the big suits from upstairs had to come down and help us like cup the theater. We call it cupping, where everybody left their drinks in the little like cup holders. Uh-huh. And so it was your job to dump the drink into the trash and then put the cups in these huge like things to quickly get them out of there. And then you have somebody else whose job was to actually, trash the big trash bags. But here's what's crazy. At Park Place, the entire theater is on the second floor. The box office is on the first floor, but there's like a big, huge set of stairs and like an elevator, escalator, whatever. Which means that the loading dock where I was parked for Monsters, Inc., there's also a trash room there where all these chutes would come down from the upper level where the guys would put the trash things from their big whalers and they would push them down the chute. At the bottom of the chute were these whalers where people would come and they ostensibly put them into the big dumpsters where they have the trash compactor and all that. Except that the bags would break when they would hit the whalers in the trash room. And so like soda and stuff would leak in between these big, the whaler is like a giant like wheelbarrow thing, right? And after less than a year, this is what's amazing to me, after less than a year, the residual soda from the broken bags that happened to escape between these giant plastic whalers that hit the ground had eaten through the concrete floor like it was the Grand Canyon, okay? There's literally like spires of concrete, like it was like Zion National Park, okay? And it stank like nothing you had ever experienced. I mean, one does not simply walk into the trash room at Park Place, okay? There is a sleepless malice there that does not sleep. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I'm kind of afraid to go to kids' films now because I don't like how disgusting they must be after.
Did they actually wipe every seat down or no?
If there's time. You know, we tried to get everything done, and I admit, you know, I'm just a humble, imperfect man. And there were times where I was under such stress that I'm like, you know, movies would break too close together because understand, you know, it is a very complex formula that the GM has to follow to create the schedule that allows the theater to function, especially when it's a 20-plex. This is not just like one theater and one auditorium. There's 20 auditoriums, right? And having the different lengths of movies, the GM's job is to schedule it in such a way that the movies wouldn't all break at once, because you have to have people that go in and clean the theaters before the next show can start. In fact, you have to wait until the movie theater gets clean before you can let the next people in. And those people want to get in right away, right? So I once or twice had to leave the theater only half cleaned because there simply wasn't time. And I'm ashamed about that.
We're holding you accountable now.
Exactly.
But, you know, when you hear the phrase overworked and underpaid, understaffed, then you'll know exactly what I mean.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I never really thought about that with the theaters, the cleaning and everything. Because that's
pretty crazy.
Big part of the job then would be cleaning, right? Depending on
you know, when I was floor manager, that was a big part of the job. What you may not know is that there you know, the really bright lights in the theater that you almost never see because they're never on when patrons are there are called janitors lights. And that's because after the final show around 11, sometimes midnight, sometimes even later, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a night crew of janitors that thoroughly cleans every single auditorium. So anything that the floor crew missed, when those big, really bright lights are on, you can see all the little nooks and crannies that get cleaned out every single day. And that's the thing. COVID is different. But unless there's a worldwide pandemic, if it's a holiday, it's busier than normal for the theater. So they never, ever close. Like there's not a holiday where the theater is going to close. Thanksgiving, they're open. Christmas, they're open. Easter, they're open. New Year's, they're open. You know, only a pandemic can close those things down, right? Because when other people are off, that's where they want to go. They want to go to the theater. So those night janitors did a really good job in taking care of them. And I have to say, I wonder sometimes the kind of things they would find at 2 a.m. with the janitor's lights that weren't visible in the dark, you know?
Yeah. Was there any valuables that you ever found in a theater?
I mean, you know, nothing too crazy. We found what we thought was like a gold-plated umbrella once. And that stuck around in Lost and Found for a long time, and no one ever claimed it, you know? I think it belonged to the Penguin. No, we found, I mean, I'm not going to lie, we found some nasty things, but I won't even talk about that. There were some pretty terrible things that we found in the theater before. I mean, you know, there's the requisite things like you know, like you said, Big Mac wrappers and, you know, stuff like that, you know, partially melted candy that got smushed into the ground by, you know, boots and stuff like that. But, you know, nothing too terrible. I think most people are generally civilized. Children, on the other hand, not so much.
And then what's the cutoff point to where you can return your ticket? Because I remember my parents went to go see Napoleon Dynamite, and they were so livid at how dumb the movie was, which now it's hilarious to me. But they thought it was so stupid within the first, 10 minutes or so that they just walked out and asked for their money back.
I think a good house manager is going to give the person their money back, even if it's after the movie is over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because truthfully, you know, most people don't ask for their money back as a scam. And if, you know, there are scammers, guess what? We're going to have memorized their pictures. You know, generally most people are, you know, they're like, hey, you know what? I hated this and I'm mad at you for showing it to me. Give me my money back.
Have you ever tried returning, or have you ever been so mad at a film that you got your money back?
I believe I did walk out of a film once halfway through, and they wouldn't give me a refund, but they gave me a voucher, which was good enough. Incidentally, I don't know if this is still true under the new regime, but Century had different levels of vouchers. Something that said guest pass was not as strong as something that said rain check. And the reason is because like we had power outages during storms in the middle of the theater, where not only did like the projectors shut off, but the lights were out. So now you got 400 people in this massive auditorium like screaming because there's no lights, there's no movie, there's no nothing. You know, it's just power outage, blackout, right? So, you know, dealing with stuff like that is crazy, but the rain check is what's issued in situations like that. So the guest pass is like, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't like Napoleon Dynamite throwing the little plastic He-Man doll out of the school bus window? Well, here's a guest pass for you then, you know? Whereas a rain check is, hey, you know what? Whenever the movie says no passes, guest passes can't be used for that. But the rain check can be used for anything, even opening night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you were stuck like in a blacked out theater during a monsoon storm and you could get handed a rain check pass, you can come back for, you know, Star Wars Episode 10, Ryan Johnson edition. And they'll let you in.
I hope
Nice.
that never happens.
And then you were there, you said, in 2001?
Yeah, I got hired in the summer of 01. Mm-hmm.
So then did anything change with security after 9/11 with all that? Was there like some kind of, was anybody afraid of? Because I know, not that maybe this isn't a topic that we want to talk about, but some bad things happen in theaters a lot of times. I'm not sure how much security they had before that or after that.
9/11 wasn't the big catalyst. The big catalyst was the Dark Knight Returns thing that happened in Colorado, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, you know, they were much more careful about back doors being propped. They were much more careful about costumes. And, you know, frankly, this is horrible, but that's something that, you know, the type of movie, you know, they're not putting extra security out for Winnie the Pooh, you know, but some of these Dark Knight type, you know, serious, you know, movies like that, you know, the Joker or whatever. Yeah, they're going to have extra security because, you know, it seems to attract, you know, the type of person that might identify with such a supervillain, right?
Yeah.
So what would you tell about the different audiences for specific movies then, per se? Like, let's say you got a line to go see SpiderMan, but then you got another line to go see, you know, something else. Well, could you tell like that certain audiences were a little different than other ones?
You can. I mean, you know, the most obvious is, you know, kids' movies, obviously, but, you know, rom-coms often had more women, you know, whereas something that is edgier, darker, you know, sometimes more violent might have an older crowd. And there's more, forgive me, single people there than there would be in the rom-com line, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, frankly, older, single, you know, men who like edgy thrillers are probably more dangerous than happy men, you know, with families and wonderfulness. Yay.
That's a good way of putting it.
Because they come to the theater and they got nothing to lose.
Right? Yeah. Crazy.
No, I will tell you a story. I think the craziest thing that, you know, this is before we even opened the theater. We were stocking the arcade, and the arcade games would not fit inside the elevator because they scrimped on the elevator. They didn't want an elevator. They just wanted an escalator. But of course, the ADA says, hey, you got to have an elevator for folks, and that makes sense. But the video games would not fit in the elevator. They're like, well, what are we going to do? Well, I guess we're going to use a crane. So they literally hired a crane. And they put this, like, you know, these ropes and things around the video game crates, which were enormous. And of course, I was put in charge of getting these things in. And all of a sudden, the wind starts to pick up, right? So you have this, like, you know, 20,000-pound video game cabinet crate, like, swinging in the wind. And, you know, we're trying to get close to it, but maybe we like think better of it. We're like, oh, dude, we can't do it. So we let it go by. and they would sort of like swing and then come down a little bit. We're like, okay, this one, we went out and grabbed it, and they set it down on the little cart, and we rolled it in. Because literally there was a landing outside the emergency exits of the theater where you could actually have the crane in the parking lot and load up the video games and haul them in. But there was some hair-raising moments. In fact, I think at one point there was a little bit of damage to the outside of that building because of that.
Oh, man.
But you didn't hear that from me.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about how they got all that stuff in there. You just, I don't know. As you grow up, I guess you learn more stuff, but I've always been oblivious. I'm like, hey, this thing got here and has always been here.
See, I think they should have used guys to put the video game crates on these big logs and kind of slowly rolled them up the staircase like the Egyptians did when building the pyramids.
Yeah.
Probably would have been safer than the giant crane in the middle of a windstorm, but anyway.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, that stuff gets sketchy. I've worked for an AC company before, and you got to put it on there just right, because if not, it'll go lopsided on you, and you got a problem. But
I hate when that happens. How do we lose Johnny? Well, Johnny was actually trying to catch a 20,000-pound video game in the middle of a windstorm, and he just didn't make it. Oh,
What a way to go out. He got the worst score on that game, that's for sure.
We'll put the top score, in his initials in his honor,
Yeah. Well, thanks again for being on the show, Tyson.
Of course. It's my pleasure, guys. It's always fun.
Is there
making it happen?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad we didn't die during the thunderstorm,
That's good.
It only rained a little bit, it seems like.
No one drowned? No one got electrocuted? No one got deafened by thunder? We're doing okay.
I think so.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Aaron? As I don't know, was this a good place to end? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I thank you, Tyson. Like I said, for jumping on and giving us some more stories. The funny thing is, I know there's plenty of more, so you'll have to come back again for season.
Oh man,
for season 3.
We haven't even talked about Africa or China yet.
Oh, that's true.
Oh yeah,
I know. So we still have a lot more to talk about, but yeah, we appreciate you for joining us, and this is very.
Oh no, we're still gonna continue talking because I need to hear this other stuff that you're gonna say about the figures. We always have like a second part of the episode that we just don't record.
Yeah.
Yes, I could tell you some stories.
Well, this has been Two Crazy Scoots Podcast with your hosts Ao and Antino. Thanks for sticking with us, and we hope to see you soon. Well, not that close. Please stay away from us.